For this case study, we are going to be exploring the Volkswagen emissions scandal that was also known as Dieselgate. So the emissions scandal, Volkswagen emissions scandal, was when the EPA made public allegations that Volkswagen violated the Clean Air Act by selling approximately 590,000 model year 2009 to 2016 diesel motor vehicles equipped with defeat devices, and those devices were computer software programs designed to cheat on federal emission tests to disguise how much oxides of nitrogen were being emitted by the vehicles. So basically the software would monitor the steering habits of the vehicle, because when an emissions test is being performed, the vehicle is stationary, so there's no steering happening. And when it would recognize that there was no steering, it would operate within regulation. If it recognized that there was steering occurring, then it knew it wasn't in the midst of being tested, so it would default to a higher emission output, which was actually up to 40 times the EPA standard. And any type of modifications or software to basically, fake it for emissions testing is strictly prohibited under the Clean Air Act. So here we have our response timeline. September 3rd of 2015, Volkswagen knew the EPA was aware of the defeat devices. At that time, the EPA only suspected 480,000 vehicles were affected. And VW had about 2 weeks to develop, a strategy or a crisis response, or come out to the public themselves, and they neglected to act in any way. So on September 18th, 2015, the EPA went public with their allegations and issued a formal notice of violation of the Clean Air Act to Volkswagen. On September 22nd, then CEO Martin Winterkorn issued a public statement, but he admitted that it was installed in 11 million vehicles. And after making multiple promises and, basically begging the public to, keep in mind, that this wasn't what the company stands for and whatnot, he actually resigned the very next day. Then November 2nd and 4th of 2015, the EPA uncovered they suspected 85,000 Audi vehicles were modified, and VW initially denied it completely, but then 2 days later rescinded that denial and admitted that number was actually closer to 800,000. And then by January, the Department of Justice began to pursue legal action, both civil and criminal. So here is Mayor Winterkorn's statement. For some reason, on my phone and tablet, it won't link it directly, but it is in the PowerPoint, so we're just going to pop over. Sorry. There it is.
Und Herren, die Unregelmäßigkeiten,
Ladies and gentlemen, the irregularities in our group's diesel engines go against everything Volkswagen stands for.
auch ich habe zum jetzigen Zeitpunkt noch nicht die
At present,
Antworten auf alle
I also do not yet have the answers to all the questions, but we are working hard to find out exactly what happened. To do that, we're putting everything on the table, as quickly, rigorously, and transparently as possible. And we continue to cooperate closely with the relevant government organizations and authorities. This quick and full clarification has the highest priority. We owe that to our customers, our employees, and the public. And to be frank with you, manipulation and Volkswagen, that must never be allowed to happen again. Ladies and gentlemen, millions of people all over the world trust our brands, our cars, and our technologies. I am deeply sorry that we have broken this trust. I would like to make a formal apology to our customers, to the authorities, and to the general public for this misconduct. Please believe, we will do everything necessary to reverse the damage, and we will do everything necessary to win back your trust, step by step. In our group, more than 600,000 people work to build the best cars for our customers. I would like to say to our employees, I know just how much dedication, how much true sincerity you bring to your work day after day. I am aware that many things have now been called into question, and I understand that. But it would be wrong to cast suspicion on the honest, hard work of so many because of the terrible mistakes made by only a few. Our team does not deserve that. That is why we are asking you, I personally am asking you, for your trust as we move forward. We will get to the bottom of this. We are working hard on the necessary technical solutions, and we will do everything we can to avert damage to our customers and employees. I give you my word. We will do all of this with the greatest possible openness and transparency.
We'll track the price of your flight, so you can decide when to book.
So as you can see, he made a lot of promises about transparency and fixing things, but then he jumped ship the very next day. So first we're going to talk about the stakeholders that were immediately affected. Internally, the C-suite and executive staff. Obviously, with the CEO resigning, that kind of leaves the rest of the C-suite scrambling. Engineers and developers now have their integrity questioned. Many of them may not have been aware of the software they were installing or the vehicles that they were making and building. And then factory and dealership employees worldwide are under impression that they're selling a viable, honest product when they weren't. Then our external stakeholders that are affected were the environmental officials and lawmakers, media outlets and advertisers that, allow Volkswagen to be advertised. So, any kind of stadiums or TV channels, anywhere you would see a Volkswagen ad was also, affected by this because they're essentially allowing a faulty product to be advertised on their platform. And then, of course, the most critical external stakeholder is the consumer. So since the discovery of VW's defeat devices, Volkswagen and its subsidiaries have been seen a revolving door of C-suite execs, many of which have since been persecuted both in the US and in Germany. There are actually still some trials in progress. VW also experienced detrimental investor losses and paid out approximately $35 billion in fines and settlements. Not to mention the loss of brand reputation, consumer loyalty. The brand's profit margins and car sales declined steadily in the first year of investigations and court proceedings. So here's a graph where you can see the initial investor reaction between September 18th and September 22nd. It went from $170 a share down to barely $100. So their corporate charges within the U.S. included conspiracy to defraud the United States, to commit wire fraud, and to violate the Clean Air Act, obstruction of justice, and entry of goods by false statements. Civil penalties included payouts to the EPA, Customs, and the American consumer. 7 Volkswagen executives and 2 engineers also faced criminal charges in the U.S., and this corporation and the individuals were also charged abroad, specifically in VW's home country of Germany, where many cases are still in proceedings, as we stated before. This picture is actually the Audi CEO, who I believe he is still under trial in Germany. All right, so another way that VW lost money was consumer buybacks. 475,000 American vehicles were eligible for buyback, modification, or lease termination. And by 2018, $7.4 billion had been spent to buy back 350,000 of those cars. This picture is one of the lots where Volkswagen leased space to store the vehicles while they were waiting for software and EPA regulated modifications to be developed. The owners were also eligible for $5,000 to $10,000 in additional compensation. It was kind of like a reparations payment. And then cars, like I said, cars that were initially bought back sat in lots by the thousands for months, some years, until the modifications were EPA approved. There were 37 storage sites across the U.S. So what went wrong? So Volkswagen had time to prepare and notify the stakeholders themselves before the EPA went public, but they didn't. VW and Audi specifically denied allegations several times, only to flip into admitting guilt within days, so it was very inconsistent. Instead of rallying with the brand, they had executives that jumped ship, like the CEO who resigned. And then often there was only like a partial admission of guilt. A lot of the executives stuck with storylines that, this wasn't a corporate-wide, policy or movement when it actually was. So the course concepts that would apply to this are correctly identifying a crisis and employing a crisis risk management team. Obviously, because they didn't respond or notify the public themselves, Volkswagen didn't have either one of these in place. They honestly probably thought it would blow over. They did not abide by the 6 C's: command, control, collaboration, coordination, communication, and consistency. Denying things just to say, wait, never mind, we're guilty 2 days later. It's very inconsistent. There wasn't any real leadership, especially when you have CEOs resigning. And then we saw here, all 4 stages of the crisis in a very short period. And the news broke. They didn't respond very well. Nobody took responsibility. And then there was fallout. So how did VW recover? So this is a recovery timeline. In November 2015, they did start mailing letters to consumers, letting the initial offer was $500 gift cards and 3 years of roadside assistance. And these notices were just asking that the consumer be patient while they investigate. In June 28th of 2016, Volkswagen entered into what would be the first of many multi-billion-dollar civil settlements. And then in January of 2017, they pled guilty to the criminal felonies. So this is when they really started to admit fault. They spent the remainder of 2017 working directly with the EPA and CARB, which is California's Air Regulation Bureau. They were working together to develop modification plans for affected vehicles, and once they were approved, consumers were notified. And then by February of 2018, VW announced that the 2017 end-of-year figures not only matched but exceeded pre-scandal sales of 11 billion euros in 2014. So how did they do it? So they started from the inside out. VW worked from within to correct their company culture. They had new executives who took the role seriously and focused on reforming the brand. In the summer of 2016, a sustainable council of 9 people was formed in the organization to reconstruct how the vehicles were designed and produced to fit the new environmentally conscious business model. They improved their relations with policymakers by working directly with the EPA and CARB to develop the modifications. So instead of, we'll fix it and let you know what we're doing, they actually invited the EPA in to their engineering and everything to make sure that they were working together to fix it and doing exactly what they needed to do. They regained customer trust and support through many avenues. The initial acknowledgement letters, there was consistent communication. Many of these letters went out letting them know, okay, your vehicle's been affected. We'll let you know as soon as there's a resolution. We're working on the resolution. We'll let you know when your vehicle can be fixed or bought back. They developed a whole website just for the buyback information. And they followed through with these promises because they did buy back vehicles, they did pay out reparations, and they made sure these customers got into vehicles that were, safe for the environment. So their financial recovery, as we discussed, within 2 years of the scandal unfolding, they were able to recover unit sales and profits. This is a graph showing 2017 sales compared to 2016. And 2016 was their worst year following the scandal coming out. They were also smart with their buyback program by modifying and reselling most of the affected vehicles. There actually weren't very many that were scrapped entirely. So let's apply some more course concepts into their recovery. They finally accepted full responsibility. They pled guilty. They issued a statement to consumers. They formulated a resolution with achievable goals. Those goals were achievable because they worked with the EPA. So they had constant instruction of what they actually needed to do. As we discussed, they sent out the regular letters and set up the website, so they were communicating regularly. And then to this day, they're still continuously working to evaluate and improve their procedures. And because they are one of the cleanest car companies today, they kept their word. So in conclusion, even though the initial response to the crisis was fumbled, VW employed all the right tactics to rebound effectively. The brands consistently met the goals it set for itself and exceeded the expectations of regulators and consumers. To keep in line with the organization's goals towards sustainability, they've announced they will release an affordable electric car for under $30,000 in 2025, and all vehicles sold in Europe after 2023 will be solely electric powered. And there are our sources. Thank you.